The day my son told me I want him well to christen, I had just finished signing the last text the check. $84,000. I had written $4,000. I had written it in the same careful block letters. I had written it dollars. Some me careful block letters. I was for everything. Dates. Some line. Tate Hazen, 100 Tates and Edie Tordinidi teaches you to be precise. The check was for the down payment on the Satan of Scottsdale. My name is Raymond Cole. I am Scottsdale Bibe. My name is Raymond Cole. I am 60 years old. Retired. Wide way wife. My wife, Dayton, passed away 4 years. The older one, Marcus, lives in Portland with his wife and handles his whole life. The younger one, Brett, is the son life. Brett is the son in this story. Brett had told me that Tuesday morning the way he easily did. Upate, moving fast, house to fact. He told me they had found. House to fact. Else to fact. Paid him moving fast. Half to fact, they found the house. 4 bedrooms, good school tirade. Pool in the backyard. Ain't a loaf at it. They need the down payment confin corn fibbed by Friday or they'd forehead or they would lose. It eyes read. We also want to talk to you about the christening plans. Can you call? The baby, my grandson Noah, was 6 weeks old. I had met him exactly on seat at Piltigazolan. Beetaf Beetle when Brady texted to move the movement 40 minutes after the birth. I had driven 2 hours from Tusis and held him for about 12 minutes before any arrived and the injury and 4. The called back. Any tals. The work mini itself to immediate family on both sides, and then doing a bidger receptom afterward at a venue they had to rent to. That sounds fine, I said. What? It rented. That. W.E. counting at Azia's parents, her sister and brother and Brettit. Instaband, Brittit. It's a very small ceremony. W.E. to we prode, Mooney. W.E. to you can come to the respamted part afterward. You still be there for concoction, part afterward. Earstale. Brittit was small most of. And doubly ween want you there for the celebration. The reception starts at 2 and goes until evening. There will be food, the family, you'll be able to spend time with Noah. A sake Hamo and his voice had that careful feltness. It got when he had already agreed something and is now hoping I would go along without a conversation. It's just how they do it on Pharisation. It's just how they do it in her family. Hairshade. I Harold Travis. It's a big deal for them. Is your father being scared to sit in the parking lot also a big deal for them? Dad, come on. I told him I would think about it. I hung up and went and think about it. I hung up and went and sat in the backyard. I hung up and went and sat in the backyard. Which is what I do when I need to be cute. JN had put a small fountain back there. Solar powered. The kind that gurgles in the afternoon when the sun hits it right. She bought it out of Garn. She bought it out of Zam. Sell worked it a barrage self and $12 and it still work. I sat next to it and looked at the saguaro cactus along the back wall and tried to figure out what exactly I was feeling. Mostly what I feeling. Mostly what I feeled was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. I went oinstide that pired that sleep fixes. I went oins nad pull out that my financial records, I keep it. Everything in a binder. Jean had always teased me about it, called it my paper museum. When she was sick, I used to read her the categories out loud sometimes, to make her liget. Was sometimes to make her liuch. Utilities. Endurance. Brettity. I had opente sakatsaken for Bretty 3 years ago, when the requick started crin, when the furbans common more frequently. I satt the kitchen table and I bidded it all up for the first time with the 13 fension of vacatique. The hard originally said they would split, it were her parents. Her parents had contributed 8 hossand. I had covered the rest without being a squatted. For for a trush, he need for the bus the missus that turned out to mostly live in it that's third, turned it out to mostly live in the Driverbay. 65, hundred for what any coloured, for Batparate, for why, and now 80,000 for the Hass. $130,000. Over 4 years, over $10, over toted at the bottom of the page and the same be clutched to cretters and starred at tardity, Jan and Dahiti aid bedat, but 14 tribe kleisten and starred a dartity. Jan and I had Beal Wilder in Toiti Crosdecom that had never, in singly year receipt that number, WE, had doing retear carefully, bartiendly, without short sea cuts and without comply. W-end, they wanted to leave some ething from the for the boys. I had I'm again that mending that meaning some ething steed, and signifing semming some ething stee, and signifing it that mean, that siglor, mitre and not natten tea, and swordly matter, not an R of not and tap that ran every time edry, not and tap that ran every time that me turn, not an ot, I'd check my Savines AC count after that, not because I was worried, exactly, but because I need to know where I stud. De Hans medical cost is in the last 14 months of a lest for let beans and a half. What? I surrounded me that I was 61, not 51. That my pension from the Conket was fixed, that the equity I had leafed in my had, leafed in ideal, but donned by dotum lest account and never had been. I did not wire the fared been. 10, I call it Bretty. H picked up, and I can hear the sound of a plinkler-spinkling in the background and a brinder a bit. He was working. I'm not sending the wire. I'm sending the wire. I send. The wired bin. Thin thing the 5. I've done it because I love you, and because I wanted to help. But I am not a bank. And I'm finding out the day I sign the bankheed, and I sign the biggest check of my life, that I am not welcomed at Welcomesins christening. That Reeve daved him quick-witted, when he spoke Rick and his voice was different, lower and tighter. Anya's going to be, Pia. Imagine she will be. The Wev. Could lose card. Imagine she will be. We could grow lose the house. Then you will need to find another way to cover the down payment the way to poet a down payment the way to most people do. There are loan programs. To first time homebuyer grants in Maricopa County. I looked them up this morning. A long pause. I can't believe you's up. I can't believe he's doing this. I can't believe you waited doing this. I can't believe I waited this long too. I sighed. I hung up and Essart bin had wide the window. It was the reading share she had repulsed her herself the year before she got sick. A deep rust colour. Sheep had been Prouse colour. She had been proud of it. I sat there and waited for after fit. For the gym, the feeling of finally saying a shrewd thing out loud that you had been keeping polite and swallowed for too long. my phone rang 4 hours later. SHE left a message that was controlled and careful and which communicated very cleanly Tevany por it. Scriptly tevered of Gary of the arrived was being punted that the christening decision had not nothing to div, that was bev, that the christening catch a sevened, had not nothing to div with my value as a grandfather, and that, but Bretted was devastated the next morning. I had Sophie on the back porch and then drove to the storage unit outside of town, where I had been keeping a figure boxes of John's thins. Hence, I had been a few boxes of John's thins. I do not fully understand why I went that particular day, except that maybe the conversation with Brettit had moved to station, with Brady had moved to something loosed. Most of it was what you would expect. Book she had loathed. If it was peach infective court. Book she had loathed prima mothers of Krina, that Sheila old nove. Hen using scrubs, still folded. She had worked in pediatric oncology for 2024.20 the Vaughns and she enough and stored and she never talked about it. Her about it in a way that suggested she wish pib. Separate ed, in the third box. I found an envelope with my name on it hand in her handwritten. I did not know it existed. I sat down on the casket. I sat down on the concrete floor of that storage unit and Upton, Sage saying she wanted to write it down, because there were things she had not found the right moments to say. She wrote about me. About the ways I had shown up for her over tears showing up for her over 30 years that I probably did not know she had not stepped. The specific Simcoe, the way I always filled her car with gas when she had a hard week, how I drove her mother to dialysis for 2 years without being asked, how when her first week of chemo and could not keep anything down. I had slept in the verd cren next to her bed for 4 nights in a row because I did not want her to wake of cows. I did not want her pear-seed-eyed squape. I love Bath of the more than I have words for. But Bretty has learned to take from you, Ray, and I don't think he even knows he's doing it. He learned it, I think he even knows he's doing it. He learned it, you inged and W let him. I think W both now wiswet him more, or I hope you find a way to hold your own line without losing him. I think you can. I think you are the only one who can. I sat in that storage unit for a long time, the kind of long where you stop noticing the temperature or the light time the tam. Hound down, as she had seen it and named it and written it down. So I would find it when I finally need to. That is way she was. She had trusted that I would get there, front she was. She had trusted that I would get there if wonderly. It had taken in 4 years and 100 debt, told us douds and dollars. But I had gotten there tells. But I did gotten there. I drove home and called in my older son Marcus. I did not give him the full story. I just asked what Feldhead had ever felt like I deteriorated him differently than Larky ponts like Bretted friendly, than Rainsily fan Bretty financially. He was cute for narco. A moment and then he sad, dead. Yes, which he forgo. I figured as cause bakest and I didn't. Hey no. And dried about her. Just matter I about it. That made her fact, that made her's fight, that made it harder to feek, that made it harder to feared. 12 days after I pulled fears, Trevin for a ratus dope Broughty, and Anya will a running that I had made. At third but declared made a third but a ball agreement to provide the down payment from the Scottsdale Prashbus Dale property. They were seeking 84 de tweeds and Vodnolders bar. Towers and what their attorney des creeped damages Pramerton. Vendetta and Brayton Prelason damages for Ellied. And Braits for talk and credit for Cramerton. The hard apparently signed the purchase agreement before the wire had cleared. Cleared. Relying on my word that the funds were coming. I read it 3 timing. I set it down. I look into the fountain through sea capes, Dennis, and I have can now see each other since and above coats little go to Gita in the Leighton. Ninaids. He is now retired contired. He's now a retired control cracked, blunt in the way that men get when they have been tuve. Their men get when they have been tuve. The fluffalunth, the puffed, whirring about out in sound. Hey was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You need a Lowrier today. Not tomorrow, today." I called 3 officers and reached one that had an opening that afternoon, that moment, that afternoon. Her name was Patricia Walsate. Stewall was old, sharp in the way that people are, when they have spent 30 ways watching other people underestimate them. Her office was on the second floor of a building near the Federal Courthouse in Towson. Read the letter while I set cross from her, and when she finished, she set it on the verses, set it on the onabistis Kemriova. Perturb her reading glasses. Tell me everything, she sighed. Turd. But turf when everything, she said. But dove. A verturb with did and any guts of other, the nursery, the 130,000, the christen, the phone call where I pulled the ward, all of it and all the ward, are mulled the way a nongena, the way a nurse tells a story, with dates and amounts and a clear siri, Patricia-lish, with this Schmidt without interrupting. When I finish a when question, do you have do commentation, bank rec squads going back 6 years, ward transfer conformations, every text then for bime. Every text where they requested where money, every wine, every ema where I confirmed amount. A kep, a binder, pinder excord, bind a pied, a mountain. A kep, dane Arizona law. A forvbub bavamise to make a gift is not and foreceive could scrift. Detrimental relain foreceive contract. Detrimental relian sieve rex them to prove they subtobruves this patidries amazin, a midderbook insigning and a purchase agreement before fun them and the reading. They not have a turjiga. The doll had your word. I did so I would send it. And then you did. And send it. And parents saying in I'll help you with the down payment is not a legal contract. It is in statum of himmentant, intent change. Relationships chap. It is a statement of intent. Intentions can change. Relationships change. Change tanks. Ter Kern's tanks change. Ter Tawny Kano's this. There are Tawny Kano's this. This letter is destined to scare you into writing the check. Se leaned forward. Now, I want to talk to you about a counter. Now from he, sickling that given the pattern of financial. Support the volume of it, my statin of financial support. The volume of it, my status is widvour, the escalating natures of the rekids. There was a credible argument that what had OC read over 4 years constituted financy. Some of what I had given them had been formed on concertions where Brettig had suggested, not in writing, but in words that Dennis had been present for net ons for. Dennis had been at B-house the previous Thankersving when Brettit made exactly that statement. I had not the thurgen forhant anything of it at the time. Dennis remembered it cobbit anything of it at his time. Dennis remembered it clearly. He was willing to say so formally, and we attach your financial documentation and a summary of the overall pattern. Then, we let them look at what a counterclaim besit what a melbast on elder, financial abuse woodmanential abuse woodman fawn. The epitixalan tend to change the math considerably. Will they actually drawly drop it? I've seen this play out many time. Darm. Pole. People befile the skins of fay out man as a mar. Cole. People defile the skins of fames a worthy bitting on the other party, being to fertile, fight to be in to fight of eat and to fight, when they rise the other party is going to fight, and has the receipt to do it, the calculatin, skiver and minums. She looked at some calculatives, she looked at me directly. I want to warn you. It is going to get harder before it gets easier. Anya's attorney will try to portray you as vindictive, as a difficult man was carve, as a command besherve you cut man as case control. Are you prepared for this or that? I dodged about John's letting on fighters sitting on my kitchen table. I sickened about sitting on my kitchen table. I thought about sitting on that storage unit floor, unprepared. The days that followed were mechanical. Patricia and I be the Piltazia and I built as ever 3 sessions in her office. Every bank statement, every wire confirmate, and every text statement, every wire confirmating, every text messman, every it. She cornganed it into a document she called the Eliga, looking at Hilded it together, was different from nouning the nimbers and the murbers in the abstract. It made it real in a way that was difficult. It made it real in a way that was difficult to sit with. The wedding 2020 heft was undefined to sit with. The buzzants. Ridlom thigh towels. The medical bills situation, 6,500. The nursery, 3 £3. The requested house down. Payment, 8 with 4 house down payment, 8 Mintwaiter house down. $134,500. 4 years. 1 son. Patrita house and neft $500. In the text messages, there was a pattern. Every large wreck had come within 2 weeks of a warming stage. A visit, a nice dinner. A visit, a nice dinner, a conversation where Bretted had been attentive and easy to in it, a conversation where Bretted had been attentive and easy to be around. The timing was consistent that when you laid the messages out into chronological order, it looked less like a son going twing through hard parch patches and more like a devil. A deputies and more like a devil, sickler. I had not seen it while a Bacart sickler, Broughty called me on his day, even about 3 weeks after the letter the rhetoric vid. He sighed, he wanted to come up by and talk in person. I sighed, that was fine. I did not to Tislia, that was fine. Wait the way had Halls looked when he'd something. Open. A little subding. Open heed, choosing his word. Choosing his word. Choosing his words. He cast from me, across from me the kitchen table, where I had done all of my counting. He said he was sorry through, where I had done all of my counting. He said he was sorry fin haven't been bedane. Handled. He said Anya was going to have a difficult postpartum period and that she had been leaning higgledy on her own family for support and that some getchins had been benavar her own family for and that some betses had been using he taid, been made in a way that he now reeked were not feel a fear to made. In it, I not feel the silids were enough fear. I knew to know if WE can work something out with the house. Has said finally. We've lost the Scottsdale Praisdale property. Doubly thief with crating month and no to month. With no edge jite. With no edge, Hatabs W had a case. I went along with it. You went along with suing your father. Tid not shum rough father, tid did not answer that directly. He said, I know how that sound. I don't think you do, I said. I know how that sounds. I don't think you do, I said. Not you'd. Not you'd. Not you. I not hold him that I would him and that I would him. That I had never stopped ped loving him and that I would. And that none of that changed the fact that what had holdo to happen, what had participated in, had caused a kind of damage that required more than fat required more had more hanaften and non-conversation to addressed. He left without the answer he confrontation. I my back out of the drivy d-boy and stood in the doorway for a way for gas to undergoes. Car was gone. The hearing was held in a courtroom in Phoenix. Smaller than I had expected. The kind of room that makes you understand why people settle. Not because they are wrong, but because there is nothing comfortable about any of it. Braitit and any of it. Braitic and anyther sat on the left, with Afik. Was a urger than I expected and carried himself with the specific confidence of someone who was used to winning arguments in living rooms. Patricia and I sat on the right. Dennis was in the gallery, late 50s, reading glasses, the kind of patient that comes from having heard every variation of human disappointment and having laving led to let put fintish before respentish, before respented. Anythers broth present their case first. Becord ganized and pratted first. He was organized and practicdish, he argiwid that I had made a clear and repeated commitment to fund the sender penip. That brettit and payment. That brettit and data mind, that brented into a binding purchase at German in Dyke Friedman, purchase at Menen, to Brented Friedman and Dyke Creepass. A Gerbenet, and that commitment. That when I wit hardstrew without notibithem, without note explanatin. Present text. Messages in hitch. It had witted thin hins like conciters it conciter it down, and a lay take care of the down payment. Don't stressed and you know himmer. Though know a while always going to be there for ya. Out of context and ditch and strips, and you know I'm always going to be there for your record. Out of context and a stripped of the full for your record, they sound like promises. 10. Annika took the stand. She was composed, careful. She spoke about postum stress and about how they had built their entire plan for Noah's first year around. The first county of that. For Noah's first year hanty of that house. Sage that my white draw. Hadcon z draw. Hadcon without warting and had left them in a position they cannot recover from without help. 81 point. She looked at me across the room and said, I still don't understand why someone would promise means and then take it back. Judge Garza wotes were timed and then take it back. Judge Garza wote something down and did not change his expression. Then it was our turn. Patricia stood and let the womb settle the way people do when they have the stronger hand. Your handor, your handor, she said. The P-lentifs would like this courtant to twib into menzusional. The record tells a considerably different story. She walked Judd Gaza, twalked Rajan for the Elijah, through the Elijah. Of it. Every amount, every date, every cater. 2020. 2020 woe thous hand for a button for a business. For her. A truck that was resnees necessity and used primarily as a personal vehicle. 6 to sand 500 for medical costs that were never 400 for medical costs that were never formally documented despite my requests. 3 to sand for another series, and the hydro for tossed in question. for a property my Claton, for Henrayton Road, when written of a rendin together navaratum. Num versing am man, when rata perv. This is not a man which broke rumizin. Patricia sighed. This is old man wolf who finally saw another first time is patic. He was exactly what I knew would be. Direct, calm, unimpressed by the setting. He exersgroup the thankig zigidinen dinie in dita. Brettig zerv, Brettig seving that family takas care of family. Dennis said. He'd remember to it because he'd hought the time that Tom that I was a farm, that it was a marsh. When I fong the said. Had not thought about it again until I called about it. Again until I called about. I cross-examined him. Dennis not whether. He just kept saying what headin. Dennis not waver. He just kept saying what headiv. Just kept saying what headith. Then I tested what I described the morning. I signed the original wire transfer authorization. The phone call with a mitre about the christening. The moment it became me clear to me that my son's wife consider ceremony. That many son's wife consider the ceremony. The apulous payment of my grandson's baptism to be a family son. I described the years leading up to that moment. The cadence of the reekheads and how they had secretes and how they had then changed in honen frequenfins. After any the after manith the breacancy after any them weetikam breetix life. I described finding Jania's latter. I described find and finding Jan's latter. I said yes to everything they escaped because I believe that what would fathers do. The moment I said no, for the first time, I received a lawsuit. I do not believe that his lawsuit. I do not believe that is upon which his father's support. I believe that is something elsewhere. The room was quiet. The room was quiet. G.G.R.'s removed his glasses. Hayes looked at Anis's brother. Consul, I want to make sure I want to say one to scared for case increasing Pilintif's possession. Your silides rixive over $137. Your Caleb, I've $100 and Fernon support from Mimar. Coal over a fuel period, the term Terraintsikin and Didi Sinkin, additional 84 Tosin Bacos and Coal, Collie of retired widower and a fixed pension, Dexliand Prenner to pension, Decliand Frady of arrive. A real e-start down payment that was never committed to witted for government, that was never committed to invicomment, and to a fray. To Bodman its code to bade. To in meant fout. Courts have seen this pattern was increasing frequency. Adult children frequency. Adoption have come to regard parental generosity as an entitlement, and we here respect to dot switchstraw with Lidrig, the doctrine of promissory istapel requires. A minimum, a premise clear and definite an oath that a reasonable person would rill a musnip. Person would rill on it to their detriment. An expression of willingness to help is not a filament. An expression of willingness to help is not a premise of a specific amount, at all. The Pialintif's slam feels on that threshold. He looked at Bretty and Anifa. Bretty was looking at the table. The cording to the table. The cording dines the Pialintif's slam in full. The Pialintifs are order, pay to defends legal in full. The Pialintifs are order pay the defend. I am also directing that this matter be referred to Maricopa County Duck Protective Severs for review. The gavel came down. In the hallway outside the courtroom. Patricia shook mine. Dennis put his hand on my shoulder. and saw something I did not fully hear because I was watching twerf the grass duels watching twerf. Brett and Anya were standing near the ferrets. Brett and Anya were standing near the ferret. Anya was saying something sharp and curious. Hair. Brother was putting peppers into his bag with the tighty efficiencies of someone who wants to be finished with the whole thing. Brettick was standing a half step apart from both of them, looking at nothing. I walked his step apart from both of them, looking at nothing, out the main doors and into the afternoon, heat of Phoenix in Osikoba, which is still warm in a way that surplus prices people have not lived in Arizona. The sky was that particular sedgevo blue that Jozona. I steadied o'er the sidewalk for a moment and let myself feel it. It did not feel like celebrating. I felt the way I have felt to the end of difficult jobs. When the final inspection is passed and the building is down, and you know the work was right even though you are to hired to do anything about it. I see a fee from a cart across the street and sat on a bench and Cowden Marcus. Be picked up on the fastest course he picked up on the second ring. I told him how it went. He was caught from how it went. He was caught from how it fan a moment, and then he said, I'm glad, not Troy up from a mob, and then he said, I would not try him. In the months that followed, my life changed in small and genuine. I finished the back porch railing I had been putting off from 2 seasons. Harold had lost his wife the year before Jean, and W.E. had never found the right way to talk about it, and talk about it suddenly. W.E. made Keely mostly Semetimsburgers, Nottinghamsburgers, Nottinghamskated. I took a road trip to Santa Fe with Dennis in the Pring. 3 days, no real agenda. The kind of trip where you drive slow and stop when something looks interesting. W. Peter called it ways on the Kinder Plaza that Dennis had read about and walked around Canyon. Rode forward for an afternoon fat. I slept W with Garth, which I mentioned to Dems on the drive home, and he said, you had with telepapping when you're not carrying someone else. I am not a veteran, but I know how to read a blueprint, and they need someone to help with Papua with permitteclapants for load in common seconds for load. I drove to Betorhand in June and spent a week with Marcus and his family. His kids are 9 and 11. W and Bile Bedarf has attained 9 in the backyard, and they were tourisy in the backyard, and they were tourism in the backyard, and they were tourism and W load Tixons. And W a few afternoon had his wife could dinner every night, and nobody asked me for anything if funding a thing except to pose past the salt and toast the salt and panned to seal the stolty rubber how I met ye gas, which I have told mony thrive, which I have told mony time, which are fems but which ish seems to him to improve with Britishin. I livid, for the first time in yev, and first time in year, and myself, and fetef, and if fur, famicate. And then it felt right, and then it felt like the most obvious thing in the world, and I could not believe, and I could not believe it had kept me so long. 5 months after the Fiev, pad months after Wav, Tavbed near, I got a text from Brettit to tet from dear, 10:30, turdid, canned W, jupt, the vrum Brettit a 10:30. It said, Pamit. Cammit. Juft did not cry the way I might have expected. He just talked, quietly and carefully, like a man we had been prostaking the words for prastiking the words for actic, the verbs for ratey. He said that anyther, and he were separated. Tachi had moved back to her parents' house in Chandler with Noah, and that they were figuring out a promoting. Is see out I'd be it, Mattiat. T-sided matter-facty. Not looking thing factly. Not looking fact. With zipped. Not everything, but enough. I knew it was too much, and I let it happen and told Basef it was fine because if it was fine because he never said anything. I'm sound I knew we tear, and I didn't do be tear. Do we eat talked for hours, 2 hours. About Joan. About his shield of, and the thens he remembered that I had thud, and the thens he remembered that I had forgotten, and the thens I remembered that I had forgotten, and the thens I remembered that I had not count known were significant. About no, and what kind of father it's wanted to be, and how terrifying it was to howl, terrifying it was to realise that he had to figure that had soudlerg, figure that outlurly from scratch now. Near the end, here the end, I want to see you. If that's still possible. It's possible. It's possible. It's possible. The next time, Noah's has a birthday, or a school play, or a little Lego, no again, I want to be there. Not to be there, not fis, and bozaman thing. Because it is my grandson and time, because it is my grandson and time and tumdo nobe. You will, he said. I promise. A feebome, rhymes on and a two now him. You will, he said. I promise. A fee bove down to Tucson on a two-dater, rave down to Tucson on a seatgoth. On a tude, WCSCT noun. The back porch next to Jaden's fountain, which was running in the afternoon, the way it always does. WT did not resolve everything. Some things do not resolve everything. Some things do not resolve. They just become part of the shape of a relationship going forward. What WED was begin, carefully, with honesty instead of convenience. It was a start, a stud on the porch after hate a lift and mightied, the last of the afternoon light go orange cast the desert, the sadger rose along the backed will light, go odd, then shadow, G.E. would have had something exact and true to say about all of it. Not cementing comforting, necessarily, but submitting are real. That was her way. My name is Raymond Cole. That was her way. My name is Raymond Cole. I'm 16 years old. I spent the better part of Ford of being that being of good father men never saying no. Saying no. Jam's latter told me that was not what she had seen in me when I was at my best. What she had seen was someone showed up steadily and coolly and all the way. Not someone who shedly and all the way. Nor the way. Not someone who simply broach keks when called upon. Any for this sounds familiar to you, if you recognize the feeling with fiend need with bound being need without being valid, of saying yes so many times that you forgot that you had the right to say no fair, the say no for the right to say no for the prime got you had the right to say no, then either the saying no is not abandonment. It is not cruelty. It is not the end of love. Submissive is the only way to find out what kind of love was actually there to begin with. I found out. It took me longer than it should have. But I found out. It took me longer than it should have. But I found out. And now, I know. And now, finally, so does my son. I have thought a lot about what actually happened in those 4 years. Not the lawsuit, not the courtroom, not even the moment I pulled the wire transfer. I mean what happened underneath all of it. The slow, quiet process by which a person can become invisible to the people they love most while still being perfectly useful to them. I was useful to Brett. I was useful in the way a wall outlet is useful. You plug into it, you take what you need, and you do not think about where the power comes from or whether the outlet ever gets tired. I let that happen. I have to be honest about that. I built the conditions for it by never once asking whether what I was giving was being received the way I intended it. I gave because I believed that was what love looked like. What I did not understand until Jean's letter told me plainly was that love without honesty is not love, it is avoidance, dressed up in generosity. The cause and the effect were not complicated once I was willing to look at them. Every time I said yes without conversation, I taught Brett that yes was the default. Every time I absorbed a cost without naming it, I taught Anya that costs were invisible. Every time I swallowed a discomfort to keep the peace, I confirmed to both of them that my comfort did not factor into the equation. I did not do any of this because I was weak. I did it because I was afraid. Afraid of being the difficult father. Afraid of the distance that honesty might create. What I did not calculate was the distance that dishonesty was already building, quietly, on the other side. Integrity is not something you perform in the big moments. It is what you practice in the small ones. In the Tuesday afternoon when someone asks for something that does not feel right, and you say so calmly and without drama, instead of writing the check and calling it love. I had 31 years of engineering that taught me you do not skip the inspection because you want the project to feel finished. The structure either holds or it does not. Feelings about it do not change the physics. I applied that principle to everything in my professional life and almost none of it to my family. That is on me. What I know now, sitting on the back porch with Jean's fountain running and the desert going quiet in the late afternoon, is that the moment I said no to Brett was not the moment I stopped being his father. It was the moment I started being honest with him. Honesty is a form of respect. It says, I believe you are capable of handling the truth. I believe you are capable of standing on your own. I believe you are more than the sum of what you can extract from me. Brett had to lose a lot before he was ready to hear that. So did I. The grit it takes to hold your own line against someone you love, that is not cruelty. That is the hardest kind of decency. It cost me something I cannot fully name, and I would do it again without hesitation. If you are somewhere in the middle of a story like this one, still saying yes when everything in you knows you should stop, hear this. The people who actually love you will still be there after you say no, and the ones who leave were never staying for the reasons you thought.